Oh no, Alex. My bad week has just started this show off even worse. You will not believe what just happened to me as I was lowering that theme music there, Alex. Alex,
Do tell.
I just shuffled the audio playlist for the whole show.
What does that mean? Oh, look,
I had everything in order,
we
and
can
then
embrace this. We can
I
embrace
went
this.
to
We can just
I went
go with it.
I went to click the regular intro, and everything reshuffled.
The show must go on, brother.
It has been an exceptionally dumb week for yours truly here, and it's apparently not gonna have any reprieve for me anytime soon. But we will carry on, carry forward, and see what I can make of this, the best that I can do here to try to salvage my whole life, including this show for today. Primarily, one of the problems, Alex, one of the problems that I'm having today is that my computer did a graphics update, and I think that the two issues are entwined. So it did a graphics update automatically, and now every third click on the browser, Chrome crashes. And so I think I have to stay.
A mini segment on how much we hate Windows that we're still using for some reason that is very hard to pin down. Because
I mean, look,
my computer is literally at some point started like going dog slow, and I was like, all right, if it, I know I hate reboots, but I'll do it. I kid you not, it went into an update loop that it did not exit for 2 days.
Oh, wow.
I lost 2 days of my life because of fucking Windows. It is, and it was like, we are at 100%, but don't turn off your computer. And I have to use my mobile phone to ask Claude what the fuck is happening. And it's like, yeah, that's a slightly misleading message because what it means is it's downloaded what it wants to, but the update is now. So 100% is when you begin the update. And anyway, long story short, after a number of additional forced reboots and then triple forced reboots and whatever, I managed to get out of it. But I remembered when I was a little boy and I messed up my computer somehow because, that's how I got into this whole thing. I was like, I had a desktop that I would like open up and like change the internals. And, when you're in a state where you've messed something up and you don't have your main computer, it's like you're missing a limb, It's really bad.
You're being a mensch right now because you're giving me some opportunity to put the things back in the right order. So I thank you for having that.
Very good.
That little discussion case, there.
I was in awe that Windows can just decide, just with no warning, no approval, no whatsoever, just friggin', if I had a job. It would have been 2 days where I just can't fucking do anything. Like,
sorry, I can't work this week.
Boss or whatever.
I can't work with this week. Microsoft decided that
this is when Microsoft is. Your machine.
Microsoft decided I was too productive this week, and so it thought I needed to slow things down, or else the economy would get too hot and the Fed would have to get involved.
We don't have the oil to support you, sir.
This is correct, and we have to make sure that we have equitable oil distribution, and you can't occupy too much of the energy inside of this situation here. Okay, Alex, well, I have some of at least the intro here organized so we can sort of begin this, and let's pray here that my browser doesn't crash while I do this, because I probably will be ejected. Now, I think I can reconnect as host if it kicks me out, but we'll find out. And if we wind up with too many technical problems, we'll just call it a mulligan and try again another day. Yeah, okay. So it has been an exceptionally dumb week for me. I don't know if outside of your Windows problems, you've had an exceptionally dumb week, but mine's one for the record books. I'm hoping to see brighter days ahead, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. We'll find out. So to begin here, Alex, on the show today, Kamala Harris, who is, hinted at possibly running again in the 2028 election, is making some rounds trying to trying to talk to the citizens of the Democratic Party and get their ideas on how they can come back and win against the Republicans coming forward.
Say, look, this is a moment where there are no bad ideas. A no bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it. And in that no bad ideas brainstorm, we talk about what we need to do and think about doing around the Electoral College. We talk about the idea of Supreme Court reform, which includes expanding the Supreme Court. We invite a conversation about multi-members districts. We talk about, look, that if we win the Senate, which we should and we will, then the Senate Judiciary Committee should have rules that they put in place so when these people come before as nominees to the Supreme Court and lie, that they are held to account and consequence. Not just that somebody goes on cable news and says they lied, but that there are rules in place to actually penalize people for lying to a Senate Judiciary Committee. That we agree that it is right to have ethics rules for Supreme Court justices. And let's put those in place. Let's talk about statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. These are the things I think that we've got to do. We've got to neutralize these red states from cheating, including blue states expanding their maps. And all of this, I think, is look, we got to fight fire with fire. These folks are playing to win. We got to play to win, too.
So, Alex, several thoughts come to mind here. First, I take issue with the idea that there are no bad ideas. I do think that in the world of ideas, the space, the set of all ideas, some of them can be categorized as bad. I don't know if perhaps you have a different take on the sets of ideas and the space of ideas in as sort of like a mathematical category, but in my world, there are at least a few bad ideas. And so I think that Kamala is a little bit mistaken when she encourages people to just share their ideas, because there's probably a few bad ones. And of thought, several of her ideas seem pretty bad to me already. So I think we've already, found a few of the bad ideas. But it's interesting to me that all of their ideas are, we have lost because of the rules, therefore we should change all the rules.
Look, I mean, I don't know who right now doubts that this is a late stage Republic situation. I'm not even going to focus it on Kamala. I feel like she should just have come out and said, look, folks, I know about losing elections. I've even lost some that I, didn't even get to the end, where I just quit before they started voting, so it wasn't counted in the primary, the one that you participated in. I know about losing. That's why I should be your candidate for the next election.
She has the most experience. She has the most experience when it comes to losing. Therefore, is the most informed about the reasons why you lose.
She is the comeback kid. That said, before we proceed, I must stress how shocked I am that she put together, I believe it was multiple sentences, with post 5th grade English that all directionally were coherent, at least internally. I have not heard her do this in a while, which makes me feel like being out of the White House is helping her. That said, I mean, slightly more seriously, I think she is in her element when it comes to legalese, her being a lawyer and whatnot. But it is quite funny to
have you considered
more coherent? Again, not necessarily sensical, but at least coherent.
Have you considered, though, that she started this off by saying that there are no bad ideas, and that was sort of the thing that freed her to speak without any worry. So before, she was always couching her speech, making sure that she only stated good ideas because she thought at a previous period of time that there were some bad ideas. But now she's come to learn that there are no bad ideas, so just let the words fly.
Look, I'm not going to make a secret that I have been thinking that, again, I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not a citizen. yada yada. I am a taxpayer though, so for what that's worth, big one. So I feel like I have some say, even though I don't formally have a say. In any case, I do feel I probably was leaning towards him and indicated as much before the elections. So to some degree, all this prologue to say, to the degree that I sort of supported him spiritually, if not with my vote, I felt buyer's remorse. And whenever that feeling overcomes me, I think back to Kamala speaking about AI. In her epic, it is about machines and learning machines. No, wait, machine learning. That's it. That was the words they told me to say over and over again. And what is the machine learning anyway? Or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I understand why people voted for Trump. Anyway, so I don't know, man. Like she's trying to make a comeback. Her competition is Newsom, which, I mean, he can compose more sentences together, but they're no better. Anyway, long story short, yes, they're fucking with the rules. Then again, the Republicans are too, I guess. On the third hand, like, what are they? Either they're going to modify the rules to the degree that the Republicans never get back in, or when the Republicans get back in, they're going to fuck with the rules even harder. So this is why I'm talking about late stage Republic stuff. Like, this isn't the sort of thing you do and come back from.
Depends on the changes. I think that some are harder to come back from. But the funny thing has always been that in the progressive circles, Vox Media being one of the forerunning places where you could find some of these proposals. Anytime something would happen inside of the federal government that was negative to the Democratic Party, you would get a proposal about how to fix it, which tended to be completely changing the way that the structure was. So, for example, you have the senators, 2 per state, and there are some states that have a larger set of representations based off of their population for those 2 senators, and some find that unfair, so they want to turn the Senate into a proportionate system, just like the House of Representatives, so that there's no real freaking difference. There are all sorts of changes like that, which they look at whatever ones would currently benefit them based off of the popularity polling, and they go, that's the one we want to do. And it has absolutely nothing to do with some sort of overarching theory about governance or the correct way of balancing certain pressures and interests, because that's the original founding fathers situation, where they started to talk about all of the competing interests, and things like the Senate were actually supposed to represent the interests of the state governments itself, not the interest of the people of the states. And the progressive movements have always wanted to do away with that, because they didn't like that. They always float towards something called the will of the people, and the people should be voting for absolutely everything that is involved in politics. And there's no competing interests, no organizations that have any other incentive structures that should be represented in the government. It's just all, quote, the people. And whatever that means is up to discussion, as the gerrymandering sort of situation sort of proves. How you carve up a geography and allocate voting districts is not a science at all. It's an art at best, because there is no canonical way to divvy up those territories in order to decide who votes. So every single way of carving them up is in somehow can be accused of a gerrymandering procedure. Now, Alex, you're a computer scientist by trade. You have a PhD in said field, I believe. And so you have probably in your course of history come across, let's say, a k-means algorithm, right? That is where you can take little, let's say, blips on a 2-dimensional graph and determine the distance between them and try to carve up segments to separate these dots on a 2D graph and separate them by their geographies, so that you can come up with these points of centrality that indicate that these things are all very similar. And you can imagine that you could do this across the entire country when it comes to the House of Representatives, and find some sort of clustering, use, use topology, of course. You got more than 2 dimensions to work with, but you could imagine that you could come up with some sort of agreement where you could have, okay, let's say here is a river that separates these 2 communities, and so we have to do a k-means algorithm that takes into account actual physical geography. It would be complicated.
Like people, yes, have proposed algorithms that are broadly speaking fair and the gerrymandering hubbub. Like, just completely take it out of the equation, and which is why they'll never be implemented. Is that where you?
I'm just saying, you could start to go down that route and talk about something that's at least neutral in its implementation. Something that is blind. It might not be, quote, fair. It might not even be politically sensical in the sense that you will have periods where the outcomes are sort of confusing or paradoxical because you are trying to do this blindly and without consideration to real world effects of the voting outcomes. But that's somehow better, to me at least, than trying to have these weird districts where you have like one road that winds up to, a long road, maybe like 1.5 miles long, that's tying 2 disparate communities just because you want them all to vote in the same block, right? Like,
yep. Yeah, no, I mean, I've looked whenever I've looked into gerrymandering, because it looks like a straightforward just bug in the original system, right? Where you can effectively dilute away, create safe seats for both, first of all, and then in the middle dilute away the advantage of the one side so that you can get the majority. If you, in theory, if I remember how all this works, if you dominate by like 5% in the state, you can get arrange things just to some degree, right? Not like if you could rely on a full stability of like nobody ever moved, you could get the whole state, right? You could arrange things such that you can win every single district by 5%, right? And therefore you get every district.
Yeah.
But because people move both geographically and ideologically, you need some margin, because the thing with gerrymandering is that when you gerrymander, let's say you did that 5% thing I'm describing, right? You have a state where you're dominant by 5%, and so you slice everything such that you win everything by 5%. Well, if your 5% lead now becomes a 2% trail, right? Then you've lost every single seat, every single county or whatever the unit is. So they don't go that far, but they do make it so that they sort of dilute away a lot of votes of the opponents, and get a representation that makes no sense. Now, again, like, to me, it seems like I understand that calling it like a bug essentially, it brings a software mindset to, the voting system, but that it's just how I think about things, I guess. And it's very fixable, like, or at least, as you said, like, if not fixable, like vastly improvable. Like,
agnostic
so
to the political
bad,
process. Agnostic to the political process would be, I think, the best outcome you could achieve is at least agnostic to the political process. And
sure. Whatever, like, yeah, exactly. Let the political process adapt to it rather than the other way around. But
yes,
whatever, point being, you come back to the same thing, which is like, why don't the Democrats limit the power of the president just before they're out of office? I mean, we're not even talking about like when they get elected. I'm talking about like, later and later. Well, they don't do that because they want, for example, right? We've got the domestic surveillance laws that are going in that allow the Secret Services to do away with even the perfunctory need for a warrant to eavesdrop on communications.
Right.
Okay, like, we are told that Trump wants to be a king, that this is overreach, and that you've got an imperial presidency and whatnot. Great. So shall we limit that power? No energy from the Democrats. Like, why? Right? Like, there are improvements and fixes to the system that are just straightforward. I mean, this is what the adversarial system was supposed to be, like that the one side is in power and the other side is pushing back. But they're pushing back on, like, what are they pushing back on right now? They're not even pushing back on the Iran war, for God's sake. Like, they're pushing back on reducing support for Ukraine, I think. Stuff like that. So, I mean, completely tactical, top-level stuff that Trump is caving on anyway.
Well, I find in the gerrymandering discussion specifically, there's a lot of people who are upset with what they call gerrymandering without actually ever emphasizing what they think is a situation that actually lacks gerrymandering. So what the process is to divvy up the districts that isn't a gerrymander. It's very difficult to get an articulation for most people. So I think
for sure,
it'll just be.
And it's worth repeating that, as you said, instinctively, and as I've heard, like, seen more specifically, there are ways to do it that are far, far less, if not completely, neutral to political affiliation. This is, we have the technology to do this. This is not some necessity of the democratic system to have this drama around redistricting every X number of years.
Right. Well, moving on, Alex, because, the front load of the show is usually the quicker portion where we move on fast through these topics. Last week, I think, or at least in the last 2 weeks, I mentioned that the artist currently known as Clavicular is having some legal troubles. And recently he had overdosed on, or speculated to have overdosed on, GHB. And I mentioned that he also, in the last several months, has had some controversy because he was on a boat with some gentlemen on a live stream shooting at an alligator. Now, the alligator was supposedly dead when he began shooting, but they were emptying rounds from guns into the alligator. And it turns out that Mr. Clavicular had court this week over that alligator shooting charge. And as fate would have it, Alex, he was looks mogged by the judge himself.
Two social media streamers accused of firing a gun in the Everglades during a live stream. They have now pleaded no contest to the charges. Andrew Morales, known online as Cuban Tarzan, and Braden Peters, who goes by Clavicular, they were each charged with unlawful discharge of a firearm in a public place. This case stems from a March live stream that appeared to show a dead alligator being shot in the Everglades. As part of their sentence, both men received 6 months probation, 20 hours of community service that cannot be streamed or monetized, along with wildlife and firearm safety courses. If they do violate their probation, they could face up to 364 days in jail.
Now, Alex, I think I got my terminology wrong. It's not looks mogged. It was frame mogged, I believe, is the actual vernacular that the kids these days are using. And the judge, I can't attach it to the space today because if I try to navigate through the browser, it will crash, I will get kicked out, and the whole show will be over prematurely. But if you go into the feed here, go into the thread that this show is currently hosted on, you will see that the judge himself is a very attractive, chiseled jaw type of person who outcompetes Clavicular just naturally and doesn't have to hammer his face to break his bones to shape his face, or have to take methamphetamine to for weight control. For weight control, so that's a sort of serendipitous event for Mr. Clavicular. So, moving forward, Alex, do you recall that we had a sloth story a couple weeks ago where there was something on the order of 32 sloths that were given to the Sloth World Park that had died under many different circumstances, including malnourishment and freezing to death?
Correct.
Well, we don't have a sloth update, but we do have another animal rescue sort of situation story.
We really care for them and make sure that they get a better chance at life.
Do you guys have
Well, across the Wisconsin border, hundreds of beagles have been rescued from a Dane County breeder, a facility that sells dogs to research labs for experiments. Some of the rescued dogs are being taken to rescues here in the metro right now. Now, at the beginning of the year, Ridgeland Farms had more than 2,000 dogs, and not all of them are set to leave.
Yeah, our sister station in Milwaukee has been tracking this dog lab for more than a year now, and joining us now is Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson. So, Brian, I know you guys have been following this story for quite a while. It's still very interesting. Take our viewers back, though, and just tell us about how these dogs were being bred for research.
This goes all the way back to 1966. Ridgeland Farms has been in Western Dane County breeding beagle puppies for sale to research laboratories for a very long time. But it was in 2017 when activists went inside for the first time and removed 3 beagles and then made a big deal out of it, drew a lot of attention. They were criminally charged. Ridgeland Farms eventually dropped those charges, and the activists turned the tables. They got a special prosecutor appointed to investigate criminal activity, animal cruelty inside Ridgeland Farms. That special prosecutor was appointed last year, and in the fall of 2025, he ultimately deemed that instead of filing criminal charges, he would settle with Ridgeland Farms as long as they surrender their license to sell dogs. Then by July 1st of this year, then he wouldn't charge them with crimes. The video you saw there actually came after that, because it's after the settlement that activists and animal rights lovers said, what about the dogs still inside? And they decided to take it upon themselves to go in and try to get them.
Yeah, I know you've been following this for a long time, Brian. So Ridgeland is set to surrender that breeding license, as you talked about. What does that mean for the facility and the dogs that have not been released?
It's the state license they will have to surrender, meaning they won't be able to breed dogs for sale. But after July 1st, they can continue to breed dogs internally and do research on them at Ridgeland Farms. That's something they already do, but on a very small scale compared to their very large breeding operation. The most recent USDA inspection counted 156 dogs on the research side and a couple of thousand nearly on the breeding and sales side. So the question is, of the 500 or 600 that remain after this rescue, will they move them all under their research arm and just do research on them in-house? Or will they, between now and July 1st, try to sell off those remaining 500 or 600 dogs? We know the rescue groups that came in and bought these 1,500, they wanted to buy more. Ridgeland wouldn't sell those additional 500 or 600, at least not yet. They say they are still hoping to continue the conversation, and once they get this first wave out, to try to see if they can negotiate for more.
And Brian, we know, when you talk about dogs, I feel like it gets a lot of people's attention. So we know that groups from all over the country at this point are really just sort of stepping up, wanting to help these animals. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there were 2 groups, Big Dog Ranch Rescue and the Center for Humane Economy, that actually put the money together and negotiated with Ridgeland to get the dogs. But 1,500 beagles is a massive rescue. And so they are relying on shelters and rescue organizations all across the country to chip in, not just here in Wisconsin, but there in Minnesota, 50, 60, 100, a couple of hundred dogs. And then they've got to do, and those aren't beagles we're seeing there, but these are beagles that have been living, there they are, they've been living inside cages since they were born. So this here is the first time they've ever seen grass or the sun. And how will they do in someone's home? It's really up to these rescues and shelters to make sure they are ready for adoption.
Wow. It is a huge undertaking, and we've heard stories about these dogs recognizing the outside world for the first time and how emotional that is for the people who are adopting them too. All right, Brian, thank you so much for your time, and we'll continue to follow up with you on this one, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brian.
Now, Alex, if you're like most people, hearing about dogs that are being used for testing or suffering in any way tends to hurt your heart. People here in the United States, dogs are not just some sort of ugly animal. They are pets. They are friends. They are man's best friend, as they tend to say. But I don't know if that story sort of affects you in any way, but do you recall in the last 4 years another beagle testing story that has, I think, sort of been forgotten that we might try to resurrect right now to remind people of?
Yes, I do.
Well, let me remind some of another beagle testing dog story. So if that got your heart going and made you sad, just remember that there are other people out there you can despise for their treatment of the poor beagle doggies. Bipartisan legislators demand answers from Fauci on cruel puppy experiments. This was from The Hill. This is back during the pandemic era. A bipartisan letter demands answers from the director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and President Biden's chief medical advisor, while at the same time critics point to erroneous and misleading facts used in the letter and the underlying campaign. The White Coat Waste Project, a controversial nonprofit organization that first pointed out that U.S. taxpayers were being used to fund the controversial Wuhan Institute of Virology, have now turned its sight onto Anthony Fauci on another animal testing-related matter, infecting dozens of beagles with disease-causing parasites to test an experimental drug on them. House members, most of whom are Republicans, want Fauci to explain himself in response to allegations brought on by the White Coat Waste Project that involved drugging puppies. According to the White Coat Waste Project, the Food and Drug Administration does not require drugs to be tested on dogs, so the group is asking why the need for such testing. White Coat Waste claims that 44 beagle puppies were used in Tunisia, North Africa laboratory, and some of the dogs had their vocal cords removed, allegedly so scientists could work without incessant barking. Leading the effort is Representative Nancy Mace, writing a letter to the National Institute of Health saying that cordonectomies are cruel and reprehensible misuse of taxpayer funds. Quote, our investigators show that Fauci's NIH division shipped a part of $375,800 grants to a lab in Tunisia to drug beagles and lock their heads in mesh cages filled with hungry sandflies so that the insects could eat them alive, White Coat Waste told Changing America. They also locked beagles alone in cages in the desert overnight for 9 consecutive nights to use them as bait to attract infectious sandflies. The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease did not respond to a request for comment to Changing America. In response to the critical backlash to testing on beagles, the Americans for Medical Progress forwarded a statement to Changing America arguing that NIAID has been a target of misleading animal rights organizations. The AMP also linked to a Washington Post opinion piece, which was critical of the media's coverage of the story. Some of the experiments in euthanization of beagles took place to develop a dog vaccine against leishmaniasis, a parasitic disease that affects canines and humans, AMP wrote. The research led with beagles because dogs are typically the host of leishmaniasis. The disease would then carry on to humans via sandfly bites. One of the 3 projects of White Coat Waste Project claimed used tax dollars was not funded by the NIAID nor the NIH, AMP wrote, adding that the photo above came from that project. For those projects it was involved with, the NIH took extreme caution ensuring the beagles involved in study did not suffer, AMP wrote, contradicting White Coat Waste Project's claims that the puppies were being eaten alive by flies. In the Post column, Dana Milbank wrote, quote, the Food and Drug Administration requires researchers to experiment on non-rodent animals for certain classes of HIV/AIDS drugs, and for the study specifically recommended dogs. It is necessary to use young dogs, 6 to 8 months, to assess whether the drugs retard growth. It is mandatory that the dogs be euthanized so researchers can search for damage to organ systems. And it is recommended by the Association for Assessment and Accreditation of Laboratory Animal Care that the dogs undergo cordonectomies to reduce anxiety and hearing loss in humans from barking. Yes, that's right. Cordonectomies so that you reduce the anxiety. So I just wanted to remind people, Alex, that it is not just these rogue people who are doing these tests on thousands of beagle puppies. It is our one beloved Anthony Fauci as well.
Well, and the saddest part of all of this is why beagles specifically are selected. They said dogs are the host for leishmaniasis, I think, is the parasite they're talking about.
Yes.
Which is fair enough. Actually, fun fact, I don't know. Not fun fact. My wife almost died from that when she was a child. So
man.
I get it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, another fun fact, even though she's not Greek, she was bit by a dog in Greece. I don't know. She got the Greek bug, I guess, or something. Anyway, and she got like really sleepy and stuff, and at some point they noticed that this child is not normal and something's wrong. Anyway,
okay.
So this is a real disease with real people being affected and stuff, and we need to find something. But the particular reason they use beagles, sorry, I got sidetracked by this human interest story, is because they're so trusting, right? Because they will, they are very compliant.
Yes.
and that's what makes it even sadder, right? Because I mean, in game theory terms, that's supposed to get you the good stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if a compliant species should be a species that we reward, not punish. And I think that's hardwired in people, which is why this feels especially, unfair.
I am going to have to concur with that sentiment, Alex. In fact, I'm very sympathetic to the plight of the dogs, and I've always loved beagles. I've never owned a beagle, but they've always been so cute and cuddly. And their floppy ears just make me melt, Alex. And I'm not being facetious with that. I'm being serious that I have always loved those little dogs. But I hear they have a lot of medical problems, though, so they're hard to care for because they can frequently require veterinary assistance. I think they get a lot of ear infections in particular because of the floppy ears, but that I can't speak to from experience.
Right. Anyway, long story short, yeah, the disease is real, but it doesn't feel like we are, it's like sending people to war, right? Like, there's a way where you're like, look, we realize that this is terrible and we're doing everything in our power to minimize the suffering with all our deep analysis. We have figured out that there is this some amount of this things that we just absolutely have to do. There's just no way around it. We've tried everything else, it failed, right? And just this is something that is the state's fault, but the alternative is worse. And
right.
You can make that case to people, right? It just doesn't, from the materials these guys have put out, it just doesn't feel like any of that is the case. They're just like, yeah, sure, beagles work, good, go for it. Who cares?
You'd have more likelihood of believing it if you felt that they were more forthcoming about it. But it seems usually there's more hiding and cover up than forthcomingness, forthrightness.
If you had the analysis, it would be easy to release it. But if you haven't, if you don't have it, right? Like, if you don't have the records showing that there was a real debate here and this was an action taken regrettably at the last moment or whatever, right? Like, after a lot of belly aching or whatever, you're like, look, either we lose 100 kids a year to this thing, or we have to, unfortunately, 100 beagles have to be effectively sacrificed. Fine. But if you don't have those records of that debate having happened, then it's kind of hard to make them up after the fact. And I'm guessing that that's more like the case. Yes.
Well, moving forward, Alex, this next story, we've talked in the past about how the UK has a lot of insidious legislation. The EU in particular is where a lot of this is forming, where they are trying to get their hands in every single electronic pot that they can possibly put them into, making sure that they have backdoors to anything and everything, and rules and legislations that allow them to inspect records here and there to be able to have insight into everything that the people do. And, the United States is not without its problems as well. But it turns out this week, America's hat, Canada is getting into the fray when it comes to the app Signal, which is an encrypted end-to-end private communication software that many people use to have private conversations. Signal warns it would pull out of Canada if made to comply with lawful access bill. Secure messaging service Signal, which uses end-to-end encryption, is warning it would withdraw from Canada if asked to compromise its users' privacy under Bill C-22, Ottawa's proposed lawful access legislation. In an interview, Abdva Tiuri, Signal Vice President of Strategy and Global Affairs, said the company has deep concerns about measures in the bill, including its potential to introduce security vulnerabilities. Mr. Tiwari said that Signal would rather pull out of the country than be compelled to compromise on the privacy concerns we have made to our users. He expressed fears that Bill C-22, which is currently being scrutinized by Commons Committee, could threaten encryption. Mr. Tiwari also warned changes to systems required under the bill would make private message services a potential target for cyber attacks. Bill C-22 could potentially allow hackers to exploit these very vulnerabilities engineered into electronic systems, with private messaging services serving as an ideal target for foreign adversaries, he added in a text message. Signal was founded in 2012 and is not linked to major tech companies. It has millions of Canadian users and is used for secure communications by journalists, dissidents, government agencies, and private citizens and politicians. The bill would require telecoms, internet companies, and other electronic service providers to make changes to their systems to give surveillance capabilities to police and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service to combat threats and criminal activity. Signal runs on its own centralized servers. The only user data it stores are phone numbers, users' last log information, and the date they joined the service. Users' contacts, chats, and other information are stored by users themselves on their phones. The bill would require core providers, which would later be defined through regulations, to retain metadata for up to a year. I have never pronounced it metadata before, except for just now. Metadata would not include emails, web browsing history, social media activity, or text messages, but it could include information about which telephone numbers have been in touch with each other, and data allowing someone's location to be pinpointed. End-to-end encryption is incompatible with exceptional access, no matter how creative the route taken to achieve it, Mr. Tierwies added in a statement. Provisions that enable the deliberate engineering of vulnerabilities into critical infrastructure like Signal are a grave threat to privacy everywhere. Last year, a Signal chat between U.S. national security officials and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth mistakenly included a journalist. The chat specified timings of warplane launches and when bombs would drop in planned attacks on Yemen's Houthis. At a Commons Committee hearing on Bill C-22 earlier this month, Public Safety Ministry Gary, that is not a name I'll ever pronounce, who introduced the bill, was asked about its impact on encrypted services and described it as encryption neutral. Tech companies, including Apple and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, have warned that lawful access regime proposed by the bill could weaken or break encryption. Meta, which owns encrypted messaging service WhatsApp, testified earlier this month to a Commons committee examining the bill. Rachel Curran, the tech giant's head of public policy in Canada, warned that the bill could conscript private companies into service as an arm of the government's surveillance apparatus with expansive scope and insufficient safeguards. As drafted, the bill could require companies like Meta to build or maintain capabilities that break, weaken, or circumvent encryption or other zero-knowledge security architectures and force providers to install government spyware directly on their systems, she said. Simon Lafortune, a spokesperson for Mr. that name I'll never be able to pronounce, said Wednesday, "We want to reassure Signal and all service providers that we are not legislating to require them to install capabilities to enable surveillance, and any assertions otherwise are false." The broadly worded bill could lead to the rollout of forced metadata collection for messaging apps, said Kate Robertson, a senior research associate at the University of Toronto's Citizen Lab, whose expertise includes cybersecurity, state agencies' use of personal data, and surveillance activities. Ms. Robertson said that when recently pressed to commit to protection for encryption, quote, government officials were reticent. Quote, encrypted communication systems are a lifeline for human rights defenders, journalists, and dissidents around the world, she said. Matt Hatfield, director of Open Media, a nonprofit that advocates for widespread and affordable internet access, said Signal, WhatsApp, and other encrypted messages service could clearly be scoped into Bill C-22 under its current definitions of electronic service providers. Quote, a future public safety minister could issue orders to them requiring them to retain user metadata, Mr. Hatfield said in an email. Michael Geist, Canadian Research Chair in Internet and E-commerce Law and professor at the University of Ottawa, said he expected private messaging services to become a high-value target for law enforcement if the bill becomes law, including for obtaining metadata. He said that currently courts focus on obtaining data itself, but the lawful access regime would mandate permanent structural changes to company systems. Quote, there is a significant difference between court-ordered disclosures and mandates to retrofit or change technical structures, he said. So, Alex, any thoughts on the Canada's attempting to legislate new circumventing technologies in order to be able to collect more metadata? I'm assuming that you are anti this, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
They just never learn. Right? Like, it's just so fucking tiresome. Like, the lesson has been demonstrated over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that, yes, if you create vulnerabilities in your encrypted infrastructure, then those are going to be used and not necessarily by you. End of the story. This is it. This is just how it is. There is no way in which you create this universal backdoor that only the good guys can use. If only because the opposing, as we said before, the opposing fucking party is going to be in power, you fucking morons. Again, like in an amount of time. Now, Canada has the uber globalist, whatever his name is, as prime minister now. So this is completely unsurprising, unfortunately. And it is what it is, I suppose. But that said, again, you touched on, at least the article touched on the Signalgate stuff, that it completely misdescribed, but whatever. Listeners of this show are.
Well, part of it was accurate. There was a journalist that was added to the to the chat.
I know, but Hexeth is by saying Hexeth, I think it alluded to a separate signal leak of Hexeth.
Okay.
That was like there were two separate things. Yes, Hexeth was in both, but the one was that Hexeth had made a chat with his family. The other one was that there was a journalist added, but that one had everybody, like from the vice president on down. So I don't know why you focus on Hexeth, who didn't put the journalist in there. It was what's his name? It wasn't Mike Walsh, but it was something Mike W, I think.
Okay. It's been a long time, so my memory is a little fuzzy on that event.
He was the national security advisor. Now he's the UN representative. But his name is evading it. Anyway,
you can do.
Long story short, back when we discussed that, we said the same thing, which is there is no way in which you can install a vulnerability in a secure communication system. The story, the narrative is tight, of course. So all the bad guys are using it, and we can't possibly allow them to have private conversations, because then who knows what they might talk about. We get it. Unfortunately, it's been tried over and over and over and over and over again, and it's always the same thing. If you gather all the communications inside the NSA headquarters, those communications are going to be exported. Okay, if you create a universal backdoor, that backdoor is going to be accessed. If you create a system where you can legally do this, which is what almost, with high certainty happened during Signalgate, they're going to go through that system. Like, there's just, we do this, the encryption is there for a reason, right? And if you undo it, you now are exposed to the original problem we're trying to fix. There is no way in which you undo it selectively. At least when it comes to nation states. I don't know. Like, I mean, this is not a complicated.
There might be, Alex, a universal technological solution that you are not considering. Okay. And I don't know if you are aware of this, but the Trump mobile phone, the Trump brothers.
I am. It's amazing.
Okay. All right, so the Trump mobile platform might actually be something that is perfectly immune to this type of problem, and if you follow the Trump mobile platform, you will be immune to this type of issue and won't have your signal hacked.
So it's been nearly a year since the announcement of this new wireless service called Trump Mobile. But so far, it seems like customers have been left on hold. Let me bring in our Brian Chung, who put down a deposit to track the phone's development. To be clear, you dropped that deposit on your corporate card, right, Brian?
That's right.
And you've been on the phone with customer service for Trump Mobile, right? What are they telling you? Is this phone coming out or not?
Well, look, it's been almost a year now that we've been waiting for this phone. It was announced by the president's sons in a flashy Trump Tower announcement in June of last year. They said that this gold phone, which had an American flag on the back bearing their father's name, was going to be released to customers in August at a price point of only $499. And that seemed almost too good to be true, especially when you consider they were saying it was going to be made in the United States. So for that reason, we put down a $100 deposit, and August came and went, September came and went. At one point, we were promised a November 13 date. They were even telling me it would take 7 to 10 days to get shipped to me. I was ready to do the review, and then November came and went, December came and went, and here we are in May of 2026, and there appears to be no sign of it. I did reach out to customer service just today before we did this segment, and they told me there was no timeline that they could even offer right now. Of course, this has offered a lot of questions over whether or not this phone actually exists.
So let's say somebody put down one of these deposits and is like, all right, at this point, I need it back. I want my money back. I'm over it. I don't want the phone anymore. What can they do? Do they have any recourse here?
Yeah, so it was priced at $499, is still priced at $499, but you had to put down a $100 deposit to quote unquote get in line to get the phone, which we did put down. Now, there's some interesting new language on the website in their terms and conditions that was updated in April as part of a broad redesign of the website. And it says, quote, a pre-order deposit does not guarantee that a device will be produced or made available for purchase. So it seems like the terms and conditions themselves seem to acknowledge that this phone might not exist now, and it might not even exist ever. The deposit right now is being billed as refundable. It was not billed as refundable when NBC News put down the deposit. I did ring them. They did clarify to me that if I wanted to get my deposit back, I would. When we originally had the $100 taken out of the corporate card, I should also point out that we got a fraud alert asking if we wanted to confirm that transaction, which we did at the time.
So, Alex, it appears that any Trump Mobile customers are perfectly safe at the moment from anyone having to worry about anyone spying on their Signal communications, which is a very, very huge upsell for the Trump Mobile platform.
You mean by not having a phone?
Yes, it's perfectly air-gapped.
Hey, it works, exactly. Look, I mean, I think there's two things happening here, and because the one is so stupid, the other is getting a free pass, and
okay,
let's try to tease them apart.
All right.
So on the one hand, Trump Enterprises, whatever the brand that owns the Trump name, endorsed this product of, you get a Trump phone. Now, who the fuck puts money down for a Trump phone? I don't know, though I've seen a lot of content creators do that. So some proportion of that is people just doing it for the lulz. Okay. And they then there was this weird sort of modification to the terms that I think triggered this recent wave of publicity that said basically like, you're not really buying the phone, you're buying the right to buy the phone, and if there is no phone, you might not get your money back or whatever, which could have been completely innocent or could have been something more nefarious. Since they had about 600,000 people put money down for this thing, which by
it was just the Kickstarter strategy,
right? Exactly. By having 600,000 people put $100 down, that's $60 million, which it's not nothing. Right. So people were concerned about a potential rug pull, but then it seems that they've gone and fixed that to some extent, i.e. they've sort of made them refundable, and they have said they will release the phone. Fair enough.
Okay.
The problem is that originally they had said that this phone will be made in America, right? That the whole point of this,
which America? Which America?
Murca, M-U-R-C-A.
Okay.
that place.
Okay. Right.
It's a land far away in a kingdom very close by, or something. And so the problem now is that the phone that was launched appears to be a thinly veiled, and I mean thinly veiled, Chinese mass-produced phone. So, long story short, I don't know how long your communications are going to be safe for. I believe instead of made in America, you know how Apple says designed in Cupertino?
Yes.
This brand apparently says it was designed with American values in mind.
Oh.
So, whatever that means.
All right. Okay. American values in mind. Excellent. That's
they had, the eagle, cries in the background, and the flags were waving in that Chinese factory where they're designing the phone. I don't know, something like that. So you're getting all the glitz and none of the substance. Which, frankly, if you put your money down for a Trump phone, I mean,
that does sound what like Trump typically offers is a lot of glitz and less substance.
It is, it is
the brand.
The overt promise,
yes.
But it's, let's face it, it's true to the brand promise.
Yes, it's your expectations will be met if you do this. It's all right. Well, moving along, Alex, this next story is a tale of how grief can take those who are affected by it on an unexpected journey. It involves a woman named Corey Richens, who this week has had somewhat of a whirlwind chapter of her life come to a close.
Parent, a sibling, or a friend, talking about loss with kids can be a tricky subject. Joining us now is author of Are You With Me, Corey Richens, to share her 3 C's to helping kids cope with grief. And Corey, I want to start with your story. What happened in your personal life?
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year. So it's March 4th was a 1-year anniversary for us, and he was 39. It completely took us all by shock. And we have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. And, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year. And, hoping that it can kind of help other kids, deal with this and kind of find happiness some way or another.
And to make sense and process, I'm
Yes.
sure. And I'm sure you felt that going through and trying to explain it and articulate it for you and your boys.
Yes, exactly. And so I've done, I'm new to all of this, so kind of doing, research and reading books and things to try and understand, not only how to grieve as a widow, as a wife, but also, with my kids, how to help them understand what just happened. And what I have kind of found is, as I mentioned, it's kind of the 3 C's is how I visualize it. And it's, connection, continuity, and care. And it's, making sure connection is the major one, and making sure that their spirit is always alive in your home, and memories are always brought up, and doing things that your loved ones love to do, whether it's riding bikes or their favorite dinner, and just constantly, talking about them.
And Corey, do you mention at dinner, here's Dad, or Dad would like this meal, or Dad let's bring Dad on a bike ride?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, explaining to my kids, just because he's not present here with us physically, that doesn't mean his presence isn't here with us, and he's doing these things with us. And he's, here for birthdays, and he's here for Christmas, and, and it's just comforting to them to know that, they're not living this life alone. Like, Dad is still here, it's just in a different way, a different version.
Well, I opened up your book, and one of the first pages I saw is a little boy. It looks like he's standing in a hallway at school, and he's saying, "Are you still here?"
Yes, yeah, and it's, and that was like the first day of school, and, all the nerves that kids face on the first day of school with new, and just hoping, Dad, like, walk with me, like, help me get through today, like, give me the strength to do that. And it has found, it's been a lot of peace for my kids to really remember that in the back of their head, that they're never alone,
So you actually wrote this book with your children.
I did.
And it's only been a year. How did you process and say you go from processing death to I need to write a book and help others?
I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through, and I actually, I went on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and trying to find something that we could use to cope at nights. Nights are the hardest, it seems like, for everybody when, dealing with anything, but I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night, and I just could not find anything. I couldn't find anything that really, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace. And so, I was like, let's just write one. And so, I took things that my kids have said to me this last year, and we kind of articulated it and put it into a story, and, just have hopes that it will help other kids.
Grief is.
Now, Alex, I'm not even going to try to bullshit you here. You know that this is a setup. You know that this woman going on Good Things Utah to talk about her book that she wrote when her husband passed unexpectedly is not where the story ends. You caught me last time when we did the Home Alone house story, where the person who owned the house in Home Alone had written a book about his time owning the house and all of the cool things that happened, becoming somewhat of a celebrity, or at least owning a house that itself was a celebrity of some kind. And that story took a dark turn. So I'm not going to bullshit you here. You're going to catch me on it. I don't have a good way of hiding the fact that this story immediately takes a turn on the subsequent week's follow-up on Good Things Utah.
And it's been a crazy couple of days around here.
Yeah, the last 48 hours have been interesting.
Lots of national attention focused on our state and also focused right here on Good Things Utah. I was watching your social media last night. I knew you had this interview coming up with Ashley Banfield from News Nation, and you did a great job.
Well, thank you. I think it's really interesting because we have so many people who sit right here, Nisha, every day, and we don't necessarily know their background or what's happening in the last few years of their lives. And so this is Corey Richens. She came on the show. She wrote in to the station saying, I have a book that could help grieving children who may have suffered a loss. So we brought her on, and she talked about her husband who passed away, and all she said was he died suddenly, unexpectedly, and it was a shock.
Do you remember we sat with her after and we talked for a while, as we sometimes do with guests before they leave? Maybe, we're not in the next segment or we have a break, and we spent a few minutes after. And I remember her saying she thought it was COVID. She thought he had a lung issue, so a complication from COVID. And that was the discussion. Didn't think much about it again until we started to hear from people writing in saying she's a suspect in his case.
And we were just as shocked as everybody else. I wasn't here that day. I did not meet Corey. But you're right. Saray, you and I came from the news side of broadcasting, and there's this investigative journalism that we do on that side. On this side, it's a lifestyle show. It's a mother who says she's grieving and wrote a book to help her children grieve, and you do the interview with that in mind, and that way, with compassion.
Yep.
And then you hear weeks later that she's been arrested for murder, and there was definitely a hush that came over our offices at Good Things Utah.
Yeah, we did have an inkling that this was coming down the pipeline on Monday. And yeah, this happened, again, to give some timeline. This is a search warrant, and the death happened a year ago. So back in April, they searched the house. All the documents were sealed, so no one really knew what was happening and what was found until later.
Do we know when the autopsy was done? Was that done a year ago?
We believe so.
Because the findings are so shocking.
Right, 5 times the amount of fentanyl in his system. So we are still hearing a lot more details that are coming out, but we of course didn't know. This interview that happened with this woman a month ago, before the charges actually came out.
Something you would never expect. And like you said, all we know is the talking points we have, the message that she wants to portray. So we sit down and we, make each guest hopefully shine their best, and we dive into the conversation. And
so I know you'll get asked this question because you're doing another interview tonight with Dan Abrams, who's the legal analyst for ABC News. And Ashley Banfield asked you the question. Any inkling at all that what she was saying was not legitimate, that she wasn't actually grieving?
Right. So Ashley Banfield asked that question, did you have any spidey senses? And of course, when you look back after the fact, you're like, well, I wonder if that was interesting. And she didn't show emotion, right? We have so many people who grieve in different ways. They process differently. And who are we to say that's the wrong way to process, right?
So, Alex, Good Morning Utah, or Good Things Utah, had an off-brand episode that day. Now, this was approximately 2 years ago that I believe this particular segment follow-up aired. So that was we were catching up to sort of the near term where the trial happened in the last several months. Any thoughts so far, Alex?
Look, I think this woman took ownership of the situation. She took responsibility.
Okay.
She said, well, it's your mess. Now you have to fix it with the kids. And she did what she could, in the situation. I mean,
she found very few books that would help her in her unique circumstance on Amazon.
That is correct. It was pretty unique. So your mom murdered your dad. How to cope? It's not quite the material she would like to give her kids. So she instead wrote a book that said, well, what if I hadn't killed daddy? Obviously that wasn't the title, but sort of.
Yes. Well, to speed the story up just a little bit here towards where the trial was occurring.
It's been nearly 4 years since Eric Richens died at his home in Summit County, Utah. It was shocking. Eric was a 39-year-old man, a husband and a father, and he died in the middle of the night in his sleep. It was a mystery, but later prosecutors said Eric died from an overdose of fentanyl. But there was a problem with that, according to Eric's family and friends. Eric didn't use illegal drugs, and he certainly didn't take fentanyl. It took more than a year of investigation before police and prosecutors would say Eric's wife, Corey Richens, murdered him by poisoning him with fentanyl, by spiking his drink. But Corey says that's a lie. For a little background, Corey's case gained some notoriety because of the irony of it all. A year after Eric's death, Corey released a children's book entitled Are You With Me? To help her sons cope with the loss of their dad. 2 months later, she was charged and accused of killing their father by spiking his Moscow Mule. Since that time, Corey Richens and her legal team have been embroiled in a contentious legal battle with prosecutors. Those prosecutors claim Corey had tried to poison Eric less than a month before he died on Valentine's Day 2022, and they claim she murdered Eric, believing she would inherit his money and life insurance policy to pay off hard money loans she had taken out to fund her dream of becoming a house-flipping reality TV star. And prosecutors say Corey had a lover. But Corey and her team say she and Eric may have had their problems, but they worked through them and they were in love. So
we get to this week, Alex, and the whole trial has come to its conclusion, including the sentencing phase, which gives the lead away that she was found guilty of this crime. And so we're going to jump to just the sentencing phase because that was this week. And there's going to be one little tail end of the story after the sentencing.
Before the judge sentenced Corey Richens to life in prison without parole on Wednesday for fatally poisoning her husband, she was given a chance to read a statement.
Murder? No, absolutely not. I will not accept that. And I will not be blamed for something I did not do.
Although Richens maintains her innocence, prosecutors said, motivated by her business debt and a years-long affair, the 36-year-old did kill her husband, Eric, with a lethal dose of fentanyl in 2022. In the wake of her husband's death, Richens published a children's book about coping with grief. The mother of 3 was found guilty of murder in March and spent some 40-odd minutes Wednesday addressing her own children, 3 sons she shared with her late husband.
God did not put me in this world to take a life. God put me in this world to give life. Your lives.
A therapist speaking on behalf of one of Richens' sons told the court,
I think Corey should get a life sentence because what she did is very sick. I want the judge to know my dad was a good person and I miss my dad.
Wednesday would have been Eric Richens' 44th birthday.
No sentence can undo the trauma this has caused. It has affected every part of our lives.
Richens was also found guilty of attempted aggravated murder for trying to kill her husband on Valentine's Day, weeks before his eventual death.
A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free.
I'm Sherelle Hubbard reporting.
So that's a quick conclusion to that story, Alex, when it comes to the court trial. So I don't know how this affected book sales since, but maybe perhaps the book has even been pulled. I'm not sure. But that's the tail end there. We have one little news story from this week about the tangential, somewhat related to the story and inspired by the story. But Alex, any thoughts on the sentencing there, or perhaps the children themselves and their victim impact statements where they basically said, please lock her up forever?
Yeah. I don't know, man. This is dark. It's very dark. I will say to the dudes and the dudettes, I suppose, in our audience, if your other half tries to murder you, maybe remove yourself from their presence in whatever way you can. Just FYI, and don't let them pour you any drinks of any kind. And just to continue to make light of murder as we have so far. maybe she can, make the most of the situation by writing the follow-up. So your mommy killed your dad.
Well, now listen, she maintains her innocence, so it would have to be, so your mom was falsely accused and convicted and sentenced to life in prison for killing your dad.
With a non-trivial contribution by you for asking for that outcome.
Yes. Now this tail end of this little addendum to the story here, Alex, comes from Ars Technica, if you would believe it, under the title "Cell Phone Users Can't Stop Incriminating Themselves." What kind of doctor was Dr. Pepper? Utah real estate agent Corey Richins once asked a search engine. But it was Richins' less innocuous online searches that helped a jury find her guilty of murdering her husband, Eric, via fentanyl overdose, and of hoping to collect life insurance policies she had opened in his name but without his knowledge. Richins was yesterday sentenced to life in prison without parole. Her internet history played a key role in the trial. A few weeks after Utah police began their investigation into Eric's March 2022 death, they seized Corey's phone. Comparisons with records from her cell phone provider suggested that numerous text messages around the time of Eric's death had been deleted from the device. In addition, cell phone tower pings helped establish where Corey had been in the days before Eric's death, which were key pieces of evidence in the state's case against her. But it was her second iPhone that really made headlines. In April 2022, Corey bought a replacement for her seized device and soon began searching for things which, at the very least, looked suspicious. Here are the 5 searches prosecutors decided to present to the jury during opening statements, which you can still watch on Court TV at Corey's trial earlier this year. Quote, can you delete everything off an old iPhone without actually having it? Quote, can deleted text messages be retrieved from an iPhone? Quote, how to completely wipe an iPhone clear remotely? Quote, can cops force you to do a lie detector test? Quote, women Utah prison. Later in the trial, prosecutors called Chris Kotradimos to the stand. Kotradimos was a cop turned private investigator who specialized in digital forensics, and he created a PowerPoint presentation showing even more relevant searches taken from the second phone. These included: Can cops uncover deleted messages iPhone? Quote, how to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely? Quote, luxury prisons for the rich in America. Quote, if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? But this wasn't even the full story. The New York Times notes that a, quote, forensic analysis of burner phones used by Miss Richins showed searches for, quote, how long does life insurance companies take to pay, and what is the lethal dose of fentanyl? Kotradimos noted that Corey had also visited web pages titled, quote, what happens to deleted messages, and, quote, how do police and forensic analysts recover deleted data from phones? And a local news channel said that she had accessed articles called Signs of Being Under Federal Investigation and, quote, delay in claim payments for death certificate with pending cause of death. Many of these searches and articles could be explained as attempts to understand the case or evidence or to prepare for future outcomes. Still, the repeated emphasis on remote deletion of iPhone data looked more sinister, and the messages certainly helped the prosecution. A jury convicted Corey Richins of murder and the various forms of financial and insurance frauds. There's your tail end to the story, Alex, in Ars Technica of all places. Reminding all of us that you're probably going to have your search results turned up in court if you are not particularly careful.
So, Gator,
yes.
If your last 10 search queries were used to incriminate you of a crime, what would the crime be?
Oh, Alex. We're not going to incriminate myself on the podcast. That is not going to happen.
Would it have to do with...
nice try, Fed.
I have my moments of cooperating with authorities. Yeah.
So there's your tail end of that story.
It's something, It is something.
I mean, just in a world where she is unfairly prosecuted, what an unfortunate sequence of coincidences. Now, I have a question. Assuming, since she's been convicted, there's really no risk of defamation if I say that she killed her husband here with an overdose of fentanyl. Where did she get the fentanyl? See, I've never purchased fentanyl, and I don't necessarily know anybody who has fentanyl, and I imagine that with my abilities to network in the world, that I could maybe through a chain of connections find someone who knows how to get fentanyl, but I don't immediately currently know what that chain of hops would be to procure fentanyl. So how does one even begin to ask for fentanyl without having everyone you know look at you like you're a bizarre human being when you're not used to having fentanyl?
I mean, you go to the nearest homeless person that is fentanyl out of their minds.
You have to have a
maybe
couple...
not that one, but maybe
Yes.
the one next to them that is a bit less. And say, can you find a bunch of fentanyl for me? Thanks.
So
I'll
yes.
pay you. I think
Yes.
is the key. Look, I mean, say what you want about this woman. She is competent. Okay, both A, she offed the guy, and B, she wrote a book about it. I mean, these are both two non-trivial accomplishments.
I guess. Now, I'm curious what the text messages were that she was attempting to delete, but I don't know what that is. I didn't do that much research into the
I guess
full
it must
story.
have been in her husband's phone, I assume.
Yeah.
So she threatened to kill him, and then she killed, like, literally.
Not sure. It might have been related to insurance policies that he didn't know about. I'm not sure what the messages were specifically. However, insurance policies, getting insurance policies on your husband that they don't know about is the plot line of one of my favorite movies of all time, Double Indemnity. So that is a nice homage that she paid to one of my favorite movies. 1944, Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck, fantastic film. Absolutely great. I recommend it to everyone, especially on Valentine's Day. Now, Alex, you have two young boys, right? And I'm sure that they stick to the standard gender stereotypical interests when it comes to toys, but you've still probably been exposed to the more popular girls' product lines like Barbie, right? Is that a fair assumption that you're familiar with Barbie
I guess.
in general?
I guess. I'm not sure.
Have you?
They've mostly been exposed to K-pop demon hunters, as far as I know.
Okay. Well, are you familiar with the
If
fact
you don't know what
that
that is, you can skip it. It's very skippable.
now some people would take great offense to that, Alex? Many parents I know are obsessed with K-pop demon hunters along with their kids, so I can't necessarily say that you have the authority on that that claim there.
Wow.
That it's skippable.
Follow their opinion and not mine, and see what happened, Gator.
But perhaps you were aware that Barbie, the Barbie toy line, has a huge focus on diversity and inclusion, and they have all sorts of special Barbie lines that they create in order to reach out to a diverse demographic of consumer. Are you familiar with this at all, that Barbies do this?
I broadly, yes.
Okay.
I mean, how far are they going here?
Well, so Mattel, as several examples here, Mattel, the makers of Barbie, proudly promote that their focus is diversity and inclusivity. And for example, one of their recent product lines is the Down syndrome Barbie.
Our goal is for Barbie to be reflective of the world children see around them.
Barbie has evolved significantly over the past several years as we've continued to increase our commitment to representation with a variety of diverse dolls.
The addition of the Barbie with Down syndrome was created to allow even more children to find a doll that represents them.
We brought the doll to life in close partnership with the National Down Syndrome Society to help our team ensure this doll resonates with the Down syndrome community and is celebrated by all.
Now, I'm not being facetious, Alex. I am perfectly fine with having the diverse Barbie doll lines, even with some of the more extreme versions of, let's say, disability focused Barbies. I don't think that's funny. I'm not laughing. But the second version of this similar idea is the autistic Barbie doll line.
They bring me joy.
All right, take a look.
Hello.
What is that?
The fidget spinner feels relatable, and it's cool that it moves because I myself carry around a toy bag, and fidget spinners are one of the many toys I have in there.
I did approve her dress. It has frills and loose dresses makes her feel comfortable. What are these?
Headphones.
You got headphones, don't you?
And I noticed that the eye gaze is a little indirect. This one's making more eye contact. And this one isn't making direct eye contact, because as people with autism often struggle with eye contact, and that was something that was harder for me growing up.
I was looking at a Barbie and it makes me feel really amazing.
Now, I'm being very serious, Alex. I'm not laughing at that. I find that is perfectly acceptable. However, I will say that there are lines in which reaching out to various diverse crowds, I think, might be a bridge too far. That there are some demographics that perhaps it might be inappropriate to include in your diverse Barbie product line.
A Buckner mother is grateful her children are safe after they unknowingly bought a Barbie doll with fentanyl hidden in the packaging.
And it all stems from dolls bought in at Cargo Largo in Independence. KMBC 9's Eric Graves is live there tonight. And Eric, we know police worked really quickly to track these down.
Yeah, Bria, it was essential in this investigation and just what has been a crazy story. Ashlyn Klezot says she got a call Saturday she did not expect. An Independence detective explaining to her the Barbie doll she had bought her daughter at Cargo Largo earlier in the week might be contaminated with fentanyl. This was all discovered on Saturday when a Cargo Largo employee saw a substance on the packaging of a Barbie doll and called Independence police. Independence police determined that substance was the deadly drug fentanyl. Independence detectives then tracked down everyone that had purchased a doll. That's what led Klezot to having a detective on her front porch on Saturday. He dug through her trash to find the packaging and explained to her how the drug had been hidden in the box.
It has a cardboard backing on it and then like a plastic piece up front. Barbie's connected to the cardboard. Well, I guess the back cardboard piece was hollowed out and the officer called it flat packing. So they flat packed the fentanyl into a tight sealed bag and slipped it in between the cardboard.
Klezot says the detective told her it was enough fentanyl to kill her entire family. The good news with all this, no injuries have been reported. In Independence, Eric Graves, KMBC 9 News.
Well, Klezot says the Independence detective told her this could be the work of drug smuggler.
Now, Alex, I think that reaching out to the Corey Richins demographic of Barbie customers is a bridge too far when reaching out to some diverse demographics. And so I don't think that the fentanyl Barbie should be allowed on the shelves.
Just out of curiosity, first of all, did I hear correctly? This is it could be the work of smugglers.
It could be. It could be.
What else could it be exactly?
I mean, but Mattel's outreach has gone too far, I think, is the alternate interpretation.
Is it a load of fentanyl that is trapped in a toy factory and is trying to get out?
So,
I was going to say before that if they're going to do this, they should go all the way and they named it Tardy. But, it doesn't quite work.
Alex,
but if they do that, they can also change the famous slogan from Barbie, math is hard, let's go shopping. It could just be math is hard.
There you go, Alex.
But anyway, yeah.
So
have they ever been like an ugly Barbie by any chance?
So I don't know
or
if
is
they've
that
made
the one line they will not cross.
It's like,
the ugly
well, I mean,
cannot be represented.
Listen, beauty standards are in the eye of the beholder, but apparently I guess Mattel really just thinks that the beholders are all equal in what they consider to be beautiful. So I think the ugly Barbie, if they were to make it, would have to be beautiful in order to say that ugly was beautiful, because you can't have someone self-identify as ugly out in the community, Alex. Now they do have wheelchair Barbie. They do have wheelchair Barbie and other disability minded Barbie dolls that that depict their demographics.
I think, Gator, we've cracked the mystery.
Okay.
We solved it.
All right.
If they do make an ugly Barbie, the only way to get out of the catch-22 that they put themselves into is to give you a substance by which, everything in the world looks better.
Beer goggles, Barbie?
Fentanyl.
Oh, well, I do not know the effect of fentanyl consumption on your perception of human attractiveness. So I was thinking the beer goggles was a...
So you're just overwhelmed by feelings of love and...
I am opioid ignorant. I have only had medically provided opioids 2 or 3 times in my life. Twice in pill form, and I didn't take them because they made me nauseous. And once it was just a morphine injection after I had a horrible leg accident, and my leg was filled with about 6 feet of gauze that they ripped out after 24 hours of coagulating to my leg, like attaching itself. So yeah, I only had an opioid really once when they injected it, and they asked me if I felt any pain, and I said yes, but I don't care. And that was my opioid experience.
Right. I'm trying to... Anyway, I don't know if I've ever had an opioid. I had something at one point that was... it was medically provided, but it was pretty extreme. But I don't know if it was an opioid or not. Anyway...
I think they gave me Percocet once as a prescription for something that I had, and then I didn't take it. I took it once, and I didn't like it. It just made me nauseous. It didn't take any of my pain away, so I just hit screw.
I must say, as a European, it is absolutely shocking the ease with which you get opioids. We must have several. Well, I don't know if we still have them in the house. Okay, don't break in.
Good.
We have been given several opioids from time to time for my wife when she was giving birth, whatever, and it was like, who needs this much for anything? What are you doing?
There are people who are in chronic pain who I can understand might seek out strong pain relievers, because living with 24-hour constant pain can be psychologically untenable.
However, in this particular case, they weren't even asked for. They were just like, oh yeah, here you go. Here's your...
Oh yeah, I mean, you are going to the candy store, so they do just hand you candy in large quantities.
This is for when you see the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go.
Yes, please don't bother us anymore with your stuff. If you're in pain, just have this. Don't talk to us anymore. We don't even care about you.
Yes. Anyway.
All right. Any concluding thoughts? Or before we move on?
It's funny. I'm still stuck on the. This may have been the work of smuggler.
Well, you don't want to presume too much, Alex. You don't want to presume too much.
That's right. It's just
all right.
Epistemics, by the way.
So last week,
the news.
I feel a duty, an obligation, if you will, Alex, to demonstrate a phenomenon that last week I told you I had been observing for many months. Last week, I shared a story, you might remember, of 2 female high school teachers who were sleeping with the same student. And I had mentioned that over the past several months, I've seen what is to me an inordinate number of female teachers sleeping with their students come across my newsfeed as stories. And I haven't determined whether or not this is a new trend or I'm just happening to see the actual coverage of a long-time existing trend, but I do feel it necessary this week to justify the statements that I made about the frequency in which I've observed these things by only selecting stories that have crossed my feed this week. So first, we begin with the story of Miss Mackenzie Knott.
A Whitman County teacher was in court today after being arrested for sexual misconduct with a minor. KREM 2's Caitlin Galloway is at the Whitman County Courthouse in Colfax with more on today's hearing.
A St. John's teacher was in Whitman County Court today and now has a restraining order preventing her from coming near school grounds. Court documents say 25-year-old Mackenzie Knott was arrested on Sunday after her husband found out she'd cheated on him with a 16-year-old student.
I have reviewed that document and I agree that there's probable cause for the offense.
According to court documents, Knott teaches first grade at St. John Elementary School, and the victim is a student at St. John Endicott High School. She's been charged with sexual misconduct with a minor. The school district says in a statement that they are aware of allegations involving a district employee and that the employee has been placed on leave. The district also says it is cooperating with authorities and will be conducting its own internal investigation as well. A Whitman County judge issued a restraining order, meaning Knott is prohibited from returning to work until Wednesday's deadline for the state to file charges or Friday's arraignment hearing. Knott's next hearing will be on Friday. In Colfax, Caitlin Galloway, KREM 2 News.
So that was one such story, Alex, and I'm sure that you're ready to believe that this is not the only story that has occurred this week when it comes to a female teacher who has been naughty with her underage students. So we will move on to the second example I have this week, Alex.
We're going to talk about another story that certainly is grabbing a lot of eyes, and it's out of Douglas County. We know that a teacher there has faced a judge for the first time today after being arrested and charged with 2 counts of sexual assault. I mean, we've been getting a bunch of emails about this. We've been seeing it all over social media. Let's get out to Fox 5's Kevin Stewart, who is covering this case. And Kevin, what can you tell us about what happened today in court and about this investigation?
Yeah, there was a quick court appearance, first appearance this morning around 8:30. The suspect, Maris Nichol, did get a bond. She's here at the Douglas County Jail, hasn't bonded out as far as we know. You did say something that was very interesting. We've been hearing about this for days now, actually going back to Wednesday. We understand that investigators showed up at Alexander High School. That is where Maris Nichols has been employed as a biology teacher and part of the football program, the player personnel director for the high school football program there. And we've been trying to check into this, but it was this morning that we looked at the jail records and found that she had finally been booked into the jail. She's 25 years old, and we understand the victim, at least one, as we know of right now, is under the age of 17. We haven't been told, haven't been able to learn the actual age of the student, but these are obviously very troubling allegations. It's worth noting that yesterday, when we were checking into this story, Douglas County Schools did send us a statement confirming that they were aware of everything. I want to read the statement to you. The Douglas County school system will continue to, the Douglas County school system is deeply troubled by allegations against an individual associated with one of our schools. Upon learning of the alleged misconduct, the district immediately launched an investigation. Student safety is the district's highest priority. The alleged behavior is unacceptable and violates the professional standards of all employees are required to uphold. The Douglas County school system will continue to operate fully with state, local law enforcement. We've had a chance to try to dig into this, talk to folks in the community, and we did find one young man who said who lives nearby the school, and he says he's disappointed and shocked.
It's not right to have, somebody teaching your kids and then having relationships with them as well. It's very unprofessional. It was already bad to begin with, but now you're in a whole marriage with somebody and then you go do that. It's just wrong.
You that the Sheriff's Department, when we try to get a comment from them, said this is still a very active investigation and will probably have something more to say next week. But this is a story that has a lot of people talking here. Certainly very disturbing charges. Tyler?
Kevin, I know we're obviously still learning more details. I mean, is there a chance she faces more charges than what she's already accused of, or more warrants possibly going out?
Yeah, I think that based on what the sheriff's office did say today, I think that's probably something that is likely. We've heard a lot of different things during our reporting today, certainly things that we cannot report as they are not confirmed. But I think that's something that they are definitely looking into right now.
Kevin Stewart, thank you so much for that update. Obviously, unfortunate allegations there, and I know you're going to stay on top of it as our Douglas County chief reporter out there. Thanks so much for the update.
So, Alex, that was 2 arrests this week of brand new charges against different female teachers. And there is one more story that was not a recent arrest, but was a recent conclusion to a particular court case from before that has crossed through the news this week.
A Marion County judge will now sentence a former colonial Christian school teacher next week on charges of child seduction. 13 News had her camera outside the courtroom as 24-year-old Tori Lemon arrived for a change of plea hearing. She admits to a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old female student at the school where she was a kindergarten teacher. Some of the sex acts took place in her apartment, which was located on the school campus on the north side of Indianapolis. Lemon already pled guilty to child seduction in Hamilton County for this relationship, and a judge there sentenced her this week to 30 days in jail, which she already has served. That time is counted in her Marion County plea deal, which is identical to Hamilton County and includes 4 years probation.
So, Alex, that's a example of what I've been seeing for months now, every week, just this chaos. And I don't know if it's a trend. I have absolutely no idea yet. But there's what it's like to be me in my feed as a glimpse. Just another one.
So as a statistician,
yeah.
Which I will. How do we figure this out now? Like, okay, so you've been seeing a number of stories, as we all know. This is an anecdote, whatever. Also, it could be a difference in coverage, I suppose. But let's just say that the coverage is fair, which it's not, but whatever, for the purposes of this experiment. How do you figure out if there's a spike, not just in your feed, but in general?
Well, what we'd have to do. I mean, look, typically, as stereotypically goes, it is said that there are more female teachers in the profession than there are male teachers. There's an imbalance
by a lot. Yes.
Right. So you're going to have
and frankly,
a larger
for
pool.
this reason, by the way. Yes. Right. Like the
it
whole
is
thing
expected that there are fewer issues. I don't know that, if you can weed them out appropriately, you can have some sort of pre-screening process that reduces the likelihood for any gender. But you have to do a lot of calibration on this sort of study. You have to look at how many teachers there have been across the whatever pool you're looking at. So if we look at the entire United States, we'd have to figure out how many schools of this kind there are and have been. So how many teachers have been employed across each time period in order to have some sort of baseline workload or work staffing assessment to be able to have ascertain a specific rate over time of, let's say, at least charges. Right. So charges brought upon. So that would be the first set. You'd have to know over what time period you're referring to, how many teachers were possibly in the groups that you were targeting for those time periods, how many of them, given a time period, were charged with any such thing, because it could be that this is a phenomenon that's always been happening, but there have been few charges, and it's just now we've gotten more aggressive or more people have gotten caught. But maybe we'll never know if truly if more teachers are sleeping with students or not. But we could know if more teachers are being charged for it, more female teachers are being charged. So you'd start with that. And then, of course, you'd have to see how many go to actual conviction or plea deal, or at least accept guilt of some charges for that activity, to try to figure out whether or not there's a increase in that type of phenomenon, I guess. And you'd have to do a lot of work, because there are unified systems that tell you how many school districts there are. There are systems that you can, on a federal level, you can access that will give you all of the schools that exist in those districts. But I'm not sure if you can get a complete staffing listing that goes back over time. You might be able to get one that has a current staffing indicator, but it might not have historical. So you'd have to get snapshots of those. It's a really big undertaking, Alex.
For those watching from home, this is what's called nerd sniping. I have now set its brain going, and it will not stop until the answer is found.
That you don't. I might be more focused on trying to figure out how to find some fentanyl. So I could possibly take care of that issue by finding out how to procure fentanyl now as a different nerd snipe. But yes, there are databases that might have the information, at least for a snapshot of now. But I don't know if there's historical, and it's.
I think you need to join the NSA for that level of access, my friend.
Well, there's always hope. I can always submit an application.
I'm sure they can use them out with your talents.
I like to spy on people. Tell me more. All right, moving along. Moving along, Alex. Completely different subject. Switching gears into the tech world. Canvas online learning platform shut down for hours after cyber attack. Canvas, a platform used by over 8,000 universities and K-12 schools for course websites, assignments, and communication, shut down for several hours on Thursday. A hacking group claimed responsibility for a data breach affecting the company that owns the platform, jeopardizing the personal data of millions of students and teachers. Instructure, which provides Canvas to about half of all colleges and universities in North America, said late Thursday in an alert posted on its website that the software is available for most users, but the company added that the two separate services, Canvas Beta and Canvas Test, remained in maintenance mode. Several prominent universities, including the University of Michigan and Harvard, alerted students earlier on Thursday that Canvas was unavailable. Across the country, students have been preparing for or have already taken their final exams. Instructure, which did not immediately respond to requests for comment, said earlier that it was investigating why the software was unavailable. Shinyhunters, the hacking group that claimed responsibility for the Instructure data breach, said it had accessed data from more than 275 million people across the nearly 9,000 schools, according to a ransom letter shared on May 3rd by ransomware.live, which monitors ransomware groups. An email shared with students at Barnard College in New York said the outage had appeared to be, quote, the result of a previous cyber attack on Instructure. Instructure disclosed on May 1st that it had experienced a cybersecurity incident perpetrated by a criminal threat actor. Steve Proud, the Instructure's chief information security officer, said the company had enlisted forensics experts to minimize the impact of the breach. In an update shared the next day, Mr. Proud said the compromised information included personal identifying information such as names, email addresses, student ID numbers, and Canvas messages. The company did not find evidence that passwords, birthdays, government identifiers, or financial information had been breached, he said. The breach was contained as of May 2nd, Mr. Proud added. Canvas is fully operational. We are not seeing any ongoing unauthorized activity, the company said on its website on Wednesday. Shinyhunters, which is believed to have been formed around 2020, claimed responsibility for the breach on Thursday in a message that appeared on students' Canvas pages and was obtained by the New York Times. The group said it had breached Instructure again after the company failed to contact it to resolve the security issue. Instead, the group claimed that Instructure ignored us and did some security patches. Shinyhunter said in its message that it would leak an unspecified amount of data on May 12th if it didn't hear from Instructure. In its May 3rd ransom note, the group threatened to leak several billions of private messages among students and teachers. The group also encouraged affected schools, which include Duke University and the University of Maryland, to consult with cybersecurity experts to reach out to negotiate a settlement. Some students later saw Shinyhunter's message change to an alert saying Canvas was currently undergoing scheduled maintenance. The outage appeared to be active as of 8 p.m. Not much is known about Shinyhunters, but its goal appeared to be obtain personal records and sell them. The hacking group was previously targeted Ticketmaster, Microsoft, AT&T, and dozens of other companies in the United States and elsewhere. The group has also recently taken aim at education companies, including Infinite Campus, a K-12 student information system, and McGraw-Hill, a prominent textbook publisher. Now, this follow-up article here, Alex, is from Cyber Magazine with a Canvas hack. Why did Instructure pay ransom to Shinyhunters? In a controversial decision in cybersecurity, edtech giant Instructure paid ransom to Shinyhunters after the threat group hacked into widely adopted educational software Canvas twice. The popularity of the tool meant widespread disruption across thousands of institutions in the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK, with studies affected, exams postponed, and sensitive student data stolen. Shinyhunters claimed they stole over 3.5 terabytes of data, which includes personal identifying information such as names, email addresses, student ID numbers, and messages between teachers and students. Instructure said the hackers agreed to return the data, prove they destroyed their copies, and promised not to bother customers for money. The company explains its reasoning on their incident page's update. We know that the concerns about the potential publication of data related to this incident remain top of mind for many customers. We understand how unsettling situations like this can be, and protecting our community remains our top priority. With that responsibility in mind, Instructure reached an agreement with the unauthorized actor involved in the incident. On 29th of April 2026, Instructure said it detected unauthorized activity in Canvas, after which the company moved to revoke third-party access. The company then opened an investigation involving outside forensic experts. On May 7th, 2026, things took a turn for the worse when Canvas login page displayed the following message. Shinyhunters has breached Instructure again. Instead of contacting us to resolve it, they ignored us and did some security patches. The gang mandated a deadline of 12th of May before everything is leaked. Instructure attributed the leak to be tied to the previous incident, after which Canvas was taken offline as a precaution. Quote, out of caution, we temporarily took Canvas offline into maintenance mode to contain the activity, investigate, and apply additional safeguards, Instructure said. We have since confirmed that the unauthorized actor carried out this activity by exploiting an issue related to our free for teacher accounts. This is the same issue that led to the unauthorized access the prior week. As a result, we have made the difficult decision to temporarily shut down free for teacher accounts. The company has since confirmed it has reached an agreement with the hackers, although the amount paid has not been made public. The incident update page on Instructure now carries a message from Steve Daly, CEO of Instructure, who has extended this apology for the incident. Quote, after the past 2 days, many of you dealt with real disruption. Stress on your teams, missed moments in the classroom, questions you couldn't get answered. You deserved more consistent communication from us, and we didn't deliver it. I'm sorry for that. Paying ransom is against the general regulatory consensus, as it promotes the illegal business model of extortion groups. The factor of trust is also crucial. Hackers can and have in the past lied about destroying the data while keeping it even after the payments were made. Christy Wyatt, president and CEO of Absolute Security, says Instructure acknowledged this, saying that there is always uncertainty when dealing with cybercriminals and reserving its decision as an effort to give its customers peace of mind. Quote, it's not surprising to learn that despite regulatory pressure, security and risk leaders remain open to paying a ransom to recover their systems and protect data when considering prolonged downtime can lead to unsustainable losses, says Christy Wyatt. CISOs, who build systems that can quickly restore continuity in disruptive attacks, can avoid getting trapped in a cycle which will only grow alongside cybercriminals, increasing the use of AI-powered attacks. Rebuilding trust takes time. We're going to earn it back through consistent action and honest communication. We're in this for you and our community. So, Alex, have you ever had in your time as a tech CEO had to deal with any ransom or ransomware attacks that you are privy to discuss? Okay. Are you
I'm privy to discuss that now?
Okay. Have you ever been friends with someone who had to deal with those?
You know, the only thing that comes to mind, and it doesn't qualify as an answer, I guess it's a negative only, is that when Lex Friedman had his storage taken ransom by some sort of crypto hacking group.
I missed that.
Yeah. I think it's like a while ago. So
okay,
I haven't watched him in a while.
I don't think he's posted anything in a while, so that's convenient.
Oh, he has. He stopped this podcast. You see,
I've only seen like one episode pop up in the last like several months. The frequency of posting has been greatly diminished.
Completely different topic, but I had posted how at some point YouTube was just determined to show me Lex Friedman to the point where, you know, any auto forwarding from a Lex Friedman podcast episode that inevitably you gets you to another Lex Friedman podcast episode. I think I counted like 47 forwards before I got out of that loop one time.
All right.
Anyway, so long story short, I think I've had to block him from my YouTube in some way, whatever way the platform allows. I don't see him, and that's because of that.
Okay.
Anyway, but no, I don't. You know, I know this happens. I've heard it happen. I understand the logic of it, which is pretty nasty and annoying. But it's not touched me or my loved ones yet.
All right. So now, since you haven't had to deal with it
out there, it's going to be a matter of time.
The only you haven't had to deal with it yet, but now in imagination land, I'm sure you've contemplated what you might do should you have found yourself a victim of that type of thing. Would you have ever considered to pay the ransom?
Of course. I mean, you know, obviously the right thing to do is to tell them to fuck themselves. But if that costs you, say, your entire business, you know, there's a price. Yeah, I'm willing to pay in a price I'm not, I guess. I don't know, you?
I fortunately have not done anything at scale requiring me to consider such a thing. I guess my personal computer would be something where I would be upset if I lost everything to ransomware, although, most things can be rebuilt, most things. So I might not pay any ransomware for that type of stuff, or I'd have backups of things that I ideally have backups of things I deemed truly important and couldn't, lose, and they would be air gapped. And so I'd be mostly protected, have them on a hard drive that was disconnected from anything. It wasn't used actively and it was just for cold storage. Or I would have it in something like Amazon AWS deep storage, which is, relatively expensive for the amount of volume that you could use for it. So though that hopefully it wouldn't affect me too much. But I don't imagine that if I were a CEO of a company that had to deal with it, that I would be so blind to the threat that I wouldn't have the redundancies necessary to regain the data. If they have the data, they can always leak it. I will never know that they destroyed it. So the only thing I can really be concerned about is that they've actually encrypted and locked me out of my own data, right? That's
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about them preventing you from continuing your business.
Yeah. If you have no ability to do any restore of your systems to some recent backup of some kind, and it's just hard locked and encrypted.
Nightmare scenario is one where you've done all the backups, but they've taken over your AWS account, say, right, like, or whatever it is that you're. It is surprisingly difficult to have real, like, honest to God redundancy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at that point, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And if you pay the ransom, maybe you roll the dice that they'll open it back up for you. And they're really nice hackers.
Yeah. Yep.
Although I don't know what prevents them from just doing it again, since they already know how to infiltrate your system. But
yeah, I mean, it sucks, man. Like that, that's the sort of downside of crypto and whatnot. But I hope this doesn't come back to bite me one day. But my sense is this is the world we have to adapt to. Like, we have to figure out how to operate in this world, because this is the world we're in now. Yep. With all these tools that are available to criminals, that is, and I just don't see any interest on behalf of the governments of the world to do anything about it that doesn't begin from CBDC and end in global surveillance. Good old detective work, I guess, is not out of the picture. So, we self-defense, but not necessarily a Second Amendment type.
Well, moving on to other types of hackers. This comes from Ars Technica. So we don't have the preceding story to this, but this story
on that website a lot, Gator.
Some interesting stories come out of Ars Technica, sir. What can I say? You have to go where the stories are in order to find them, and sometimes the stories find you. So fired hacker twins forget to end Teams recording, capture own crimes. So here's this story has some prelude from a different day that is not captured in this. So just bear in mind that there's some other story involving these two. But perhaps you remember Muneeb and Sohaib Akhtar, the 34-year-old twin brothers we profiled earlier this week, which I do not, but that's okay. This story is interesting enough. Although they had tech chops to commit years of petty crimes like stealing airline miles, what landed them in truly serious trouble was deleting 96 U.S. government databases in the hour after both were fired last year by the same federal IT contractor, Opexis. The pair come off as less as cybercriminal masterminds than as galumphing galoots. That is to say, a pair of bumbling oafs who thought that they were asking AI how to cover their tracks was going to keep them out of federal prison. One of the minor mysteries I encountered while writing the piece was that the government had verbatim transcript of everything the brothers said to each other during the hour-long deletion spree. The two men lived together in Arlington, Virginia, so it made sense that they might be chatting in the same room rather than by text or instant message. But how the heck did the government get access to the audio? Super secret software bugging? Crazy corporate spyware running on their company laptops? FBI agent in the bushes with a microphone? I couldn't figure it out, and the answer didn't appear in any of the court documents I read. But a helpful source today pointed me to the answer. It's contained within a court filing that bears an unpromptuous name, United States Response in Opposition to Defendant's Motion to Revoke the Detention Order. This is the kind of title that practically begs you not to read its contents, yet the file turns out to be fascinating and reveals that our galumphing galoots were super secretly recorded by themselves by accident because they forgot to stop recording the Teams meeting in which they were fired. Here's how the prosecutors put it. On February 18, 2025, two human resources employees of Company 1 scheduled a Microsoft Teams meeting with Sohaib and Muneeb. Sohaib recorded the meeting starting at 4:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The HR personnel left the meeting approximately 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the recording. Apparently, unbeknownst to the defendants, the meeting continued recording for the next hour of interactions between the brothers. And what did the pair discuss? Fortunately, this obscure document gives us a much fuller picture. If you've ever wondered what it sounds like to be in the room while cyber criminals do their thing, it sounds something like this.
Still connected? Still on the VPN? Delete all their databases?
Hey, they can recover them. Backups, I'm pretty sure.
Daily backups?
Yup.
What's the plan then? We gonna take care of severance, or are we gonna do something about... Should we retort to whatever they send us by saying we need $25,000 each?
We are doing petty shit now. I'm going to wipe my computer clean.
I can't access the system, but I still have the email address for their customers for eCase and FOIA Express.
I'm not gonna threaten them shit. That's like could be shown as some sort of...
It depends on how you write it. Just say, according to our previous agreement, this is the tally of the amount that I've been paid. If you pay it up front, then I have no reason to communicate with customers.
I'm good.
What you working on, man?
Nothing important, man.
Why won't you tell me? I ain't gonna snitch.
Don't need to. Don't worry about it. People are logged out for the day. This is the perfect time.
How do you still have access? When did you connect to their VPN?
10 minutes before their stupid meeting.
You might still have access to it until the end of the day, until at least 6 hours.
Don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it.
I see you are cleaning out their database backups.
Don't worry about it. You don't do nothing. Don't try nothing. They are looking at you. They are not looking at me.
Going to RDP into their systems and delete all their data. The ramifications for that would be worse, though.
What are you talking about? I didn't do nothing. They closed my access when they had that meeting.
All right, if you have good plausible deniability.
Hey, they can recover from yesterday. The IT manager will have some work to do. DHS was a big customer.
Just go into each of them and start the delete process. It will take its time. It will eventually delete all their files.
Don't say nothing, okay? Don't worry about it.
I ain't saying shit. You should have thought about it prior, man.
What do you mean? Like had a kill script? What do you mean?
Blackmailing them in for some money would have been...
No, you do not do that. That's proof of guilt, man.
No, but the thing was... You always have your opinion. I could just communicate with their customers.
Communicate with their customers is a different thing.
So you're saying these are two separate things?
There you go. Go say that, man. Go argue for that. Then they'll think you're the one behind this shit.
They're gonna probably raid this place.
Hey, I'll clean this shit up. I don't got shit.
We also gotta clean stuff up from the other house, man.
Get rid of that shit.
Deleting their file systems would be a harder fix.
Especially if you clear it out. Everything that I did, I'm making sure it's protected. That it's clean. Don't worry. We'll go to Texas.
So, Alex, Neither brother is currently in Texas. Both are in federal prison. Sohaib was found guilty at trial last week, while Muneeb pleaded guilty in April 2026, but has been furiously trying to take back his plea ever since through a series of handwritten letters to the judge. Whoops.
Jesus Christ. Like good old Tyler Robinson and the Epic Furry. Oh my God.
Forgetting to shut off your Microsoft Teams recording. That's a classic way of getting caught.
So wait, they were in the same room and this just got recorded in the background?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, they left the
or were
Teams
they
recording
talking
up.
through Microsoft Teams that they just didn't?
It's my understanding they were living together, so maybe perhaps they were in other rooms talking through Microsoft Teams or in the same room and still had Teams open. I'm not 100% sure, but regardless, Microsoft Teams captured everything. So, whoops. Oopsie doopsie.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? And this kind of talks to something greater than just this particular story, but you know how it is often commented how cruel it is that a company will fire you, and frequently, depending on the protocols, like either by the time you get off the call, you have access to nothing, or in the good old physical office days, they'd have security escort you to your desk to get your stuff and like kick you out basically, and like no warning, no nothing, and you realize how inhuman this is, right? Like it's especially if, like emotionally, you go to work in the morning, supposedly in a mood to help the company advance and be part of the team and whatever, and then snap within seconds you are severed,
right.
Severance, like literally.
right not the hit Apple TV show.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you are completely cut off. You are now an intruder. Effectively, you're a civilian in the company offices. Then
who are you? What are you even doing here? We have to have several people escort you out with a box of things.
How did you even get in here in the first place? Anyway,
yes. How dare you?
So, but on the other hand, this kind of stories tells you what motivates that thing, right? Because once the company has eliminated your position.
Yes,
and your employment with it, some small amount of the population will, immediately decide, to consider what is the worst possible thing I can do to these people now with what access they've given.
Right.
And
yes.
I don't know how you fix this. I'm just saying it is a shitty situation all around. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of know how you fix this, actually. Well, I wouldn't say it's a solution, but you can have graduated access and very, very fine-grained access, such that, by the time you're fired, you have almost no access worth.
Well, see, it's a double-edged sword, Alex. In many large companies, they have... HR has pre-screening processes where whenever you're going through the employment intake route, they ask you questions on a nice little multi-choice form, such as if your company has shorted you, let's say $20 in your paycheck, is it okay to take the $20 out of the till? If you're a cashier, let's say, and compensate it because that's what you were shorted. And some people do answer yes to that question. Now, of course, you can have the person who goes, aha, I understand you're trying to trick me, so I will answer no, it is not okay, even though I totally would do it if that's right. The situation.
People who answer yes should be fired, not for dishonesty, but for lack of intelligence.
Yes.
It's like, we really need you to know this. We're not firing you because you said you'd steal from us. That is a problem. But the worst problem is that you said you would steal.
Yes, you were not smart enough to try to deceive us, and that's an even bigger deal.
I mean, if you can't do this to us, how are you going to do it to our customers, man?
Exactly. All right. Okay, Alex, and I know that you were on a time constraint today, so I'm gonna try to get this land this plane and get you to a nice closing position here. We're gonna do, I think, two last things. Let's do two last things, okay? Now, Alex, do you remember during
half hour, and I see DJT and Katie Kin here are, I'm sure, happy to jump in if.
Do you see, Alex? Or sorry, you said, I'm now copying the words you just said. You've seen in the past, back when, let's say, the 2016 to 2020 era was going on and the culture wars were frothing. Those are the things that everyone was harping on. When Jordan Peterson and company came out with the IDW as an answer, so to speak, to that cultural rot that was going on, and many people were talking about.
Oh, it wasn't Jordan Peterson that came out with the IDW, my friend.
Okay. However, I know that Eric Weinstein is the one who termed IDW. I understand that he did that through Barry Weiss in the New York Times. I know that. I'm talking about the people who were there at the helm
the popular conception
that
is
movement.
that Jordan Peterson was the loudest voice in that crowd. Fair enough.
And so there was a several concepts that were part of the cultural wars that were frothing, and one of them was cultural appropriation. And one of the mimetic seminal stories of that was a Twitter post at one point by someone who said, "My culture is not your prom dress." Do you remember "My culture is not your prom dress"? Okay. Do you recall that? Okay.
Yes.
Well, Alex, I think you and I actually get to have our own "My culture is not your party trick" moment. Okay. Where we are being culturally appropriated. Okay, and that is because there is a new trend going on Instagram and TikTok where people are throwing conspiracy theory parties, where they are gathering their friends together in order to host, dinner and party events where each of them brings their own PowerPoint presentation of their favorite conspiracy theory and attempts to convince each other that their conspiracy theories are true.
Oh my God.
7 million of you have seen my conspiracy theory party? That's a lot of people. You guys asked for it. I'm going to tell you how. I got to start with an invitation to set the mode. I asked ChatGPT to create this one for me. A theme is so important, and you got to dive deeper into the themes. Tinfoil hat making station, drink the Kool-Aid. You need Chromecast, Apple Play Drop, or whatever there is, or a cord like this, HDMI to Firebolt or something. Someone asked, do you need to have PowerPoint presentations? And to that I say, what is the point without a PowerPoint? At the very end, we voted if it was a maybe, debunk, I believe. Follow along for more party ideas that your friends actually will enjoy.
Now, the videos like that promoting these conspiracy theory parties are gaining popularity, Alex. And if you go to Amazon or Etsy and search for conspiracy theory party decorations or conspiracy theory party packs, you actually be able to buy some of these things to be able to host your own conspiracy theory party. Now, part of me, Alex, enjoys this. I think everybody should have their own sort of pet conspiracy theories.
Democratize, yes, conspiratizing.
Yes. But I do, part of me also thinks that my culture is not your prom dress is the appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this, man. Like, it's like this other study I sent you. I don't know if you saw it, where somebody, did some fucking retarded, and not Barbie retarded, like literally retarded, study where oh man, I got it. Sorry. This is complete interjection of topic here. But I just have to vent. This is Steve Stewart Williams guy who I think is somehow respected in some circles. I don't know. I guess he must be one of those IQ bros.
I mean, he's been a long time account that sort of posts popular cultural sort of psych stuff, if I recall correctly, or is he more evolution? I'm trying to remember.
I think he's in that sort of evolution IQ.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Milieu.
Cognitive evolution or something, maybe. Cognitive evolution, maybe as a sort of subcategory.
So that sort of,
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
It says the single strongest personality predictor of conspiracy thinking is narcissism. Narcissists are particularly prone to conspiracy theories because they have a strong need for uniqueness, are prone to paranoia, and can also be remarkably gullible. So he published this thing. Now, it's kind of funny because, of course, what he then does is there's this diagram which has individual personality factor, and it has agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, openness, and neuroticism. Now, these are the big five, as they call, but he's added a sixth, which is narcissism. So he's
All
made
right.
a big 5 plus 1, and weirdly, it's the plus 1.
Well,
anyway, I guess if the new generations are more narcissistic, I guess it all comes together in one big closed loop. I'm just, I don't know, man. Like it just stuns me, I guess, and this connects both topics in some way, that somehow like conspiracy theorizing is considered somehow a strange thing to do, when all you're doing is you are, evoking off-channel communications, right? Non-public communication. Yes, this thing exists. People talk to each other and they coordinate to do shit. Like I don't know why this concept is somehow, which by the way has, I mean, if evidence means anything, right? It has an untold amount. Like, just read history from the beginning of history. Okay, it is, it is the most common of human behaviors to coordinate against others, and apparently it's also been documented in other higher primates. It's not even exclusively human.
Mhm.
Like. I don't know what it is we're talking about.
Well, some of the examples of conspiracies in the conspiracy theory parties do involve things that are maybe a little bit more esoteric, and things that have several leaps. Sort of the ancient archaeology kind of things, where the existence of said things may be tenuous in nature. Yes,
I think I know what we need to do.
Okay.
We need to make a Cards Against Humanity, but with conspiracies.
Okay. All right. I think that's
It's
doable.
like
I think it's workable.
Epstein, ...
And the
the
best
other
way to
one
make
was,
sure, the best way to best way to make sure you have a secure intellectual property is to announce it publicly before you actually create it. That's the best way to secure it.
Anyway, all I'm saying is, if this is going to be a market, might as well serve it. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Well,
this is my entrepreneur coming through.
Alex, I think what we'll do here is one Traces of AI dystopia story to close this show out, with perhaps some requests to speak to get some commentary as the ending here. And the last story here, the one story from Traces of AI dystopia that we will do this week is
Wayward Waymos. This video here captured several of the self-driving cars just clogging up a neighborhood cul-de-sac. The people living in the Northwest Atlanta neighborhood say dozens end up circling their community. Channel 2 Steve Gelbach is on one street where they want the Waymos to stop.
It's almost every little cul-de-sac around our area, so I think it's a real problem.
Waymo after Waymo after Waymo enter this dead-end street, usually early in the morning.
I think yesterday morning we had 50 cars that came through between 6 and 7.
Neighbors on Battleview Drive started seeing the autonomous, driverless cars 2 months ago, but the groupings and large number of Waymos just started circling in and out in the last couple weeks. They even shared video with us when neighbors used this little guy to put him right out here in the street to block the Waymos from getting into the cul-de-sac, and you can imagine what happened next.
And we had at one point 8 Waymos that were stuck trying to figure out how to turn around.
The Waymos are empty and not picking anyone up, and parents are worried, not only calling it excessive, but dangerous.
We're families, we have small kids, we have animals and pets, we've got kids getting on the bus in the mornings, and it just doesn't feel safe to have that traffic.
Neighbors reached out to Waymo and have not got a response. They've also contacted their council member, representatives, and GDOT, and don't know what to do.
We would just like to see them stay on main traffic roads. I don't think there's any reason to be on small residential cul-de-sacs if they're not picking up somebody.
Steve Gelbach, Channel 2 Action News.
Meanwhile, Waymo is recalling thousands of its cars because of a software issue. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says the self-driving cars detect flooded roads but still continue to drive through them. Waymo says a software update will help. However, the company admits it has not fully solved the problem.
There you go, Alex. There's your single story from Traces of AI dystopia. An entire flock of Waymo cars got lost in cul-de-sacs and just clogged up the whole works.
I had all sorts of interesting things to say about it, but then she had to close with that fucking stupid sentence about Waymo recalling their cars. Okay.
All right.
And that is a pet peeve of mine.
Okay.
Now, if I tell you that Waymo had to recall its cars, what are you visualizing? Like, can
you were
tell me what
visualizing
you
the
think
physical
they mean?
returning and disposing of the cars themselves as being something that is completely unsafe, as opposed to normal auto recalls, which means that there is something that you have to go fix. Perhaps there was a truss or something in your car that under certain conditions or doesn't meet a specific standard of wear and tear, and you get it replaced for free.
Right. So you need, the car needs to go somewhere, right, to have something manually done on it because of some flaw. Is that
a car doctor? The car doctor.
The car doctor
has to go to the car doctor.
Well,
yes.
but interestingly enough, you'll notice that they said something about the software of the vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of this connected computer on wheels had a software issue.
Yes. Yes.
Can you see where this is going?
So the recall itself is just a software update by another name.
That is correct. It's technically called a recall because of some fucking stupid regulation, but there is no car has changed physical location at all during this process. It is simply the issuance of a software update.
Well, certainly not the Waymos. They're all stuck in the cul-de-sac right now.
Well, I'm saying they're still stuck in the cul-de-sac after the recall.
Yes.
No, this is a classic anti-Tesla trope in headlines, which is like, Tesla issues like a recall for millions of cars. And of course, you're like, oh my God, this is really going to cost us, like as a Tesla shareholder at the time. And then you look deeper and it's like, no, actually, this is just a software update. There's no, like, literally.
You did a flash and that's it.
No, it was over the air. Like, there was no.
Well, I mean, you're still flashing the.
Still flashing something. Yeah, something flashed something.
Yeah.
Ergo recall. Anyway.
Yeah.
But back to the thing. I wonder. I wonder if this is like that cul-de-sac that they're talking about. Is like optimally for changing direction without like doing a U-turn somehow, and therefore, the algorithms are just directing all these cars to go there.
It's very possible. However, the video attached that plays on the video version of this podcast, plus is attached to the thread that accompanies this show, has a fun little image of about 20 of these things all facing each other on a two-lane road and are all blocking each other from leaving. So there is a nice bit of congestion caused by the Waymos. They are causing a kerfluffle.
I see.
If anyone in the audience would like to come up and comment while Alex is still with us, he has to leave very shortly and comment on anything we discussed today. Please do so and request to speak, as we're going to be closing out the show shortly. And if commenting runs a little bit long and Alex has to go, I will stay with you until we close this whole thing out.
I have to attend the local Norwegian Constitution Day parade, which apparently is a thing in Seattle because of the deep Scandinavian roots of this area, which I did not know about.
Are you in the parade or just a spectator?
I'm a spectator, sir.
Okay.
I'm not being paraded around by angry Norwegians.
Okay.
But my wife's Norwegian, so in part.
Okay.
So that's like a big thing for our family somehow.
Well, that'll be fun. We made it through the show, and we actually had an ability to cut it off on time. So it's okay. You're not cutting it short.
Yes.
Well, listen, after the opening the show by me clicking the wrong thing and reorganizing the entire stack of clips that I had into alphabetical order instead of the order that I wanted, I actually think we did okay today.
Gator, when AI takes over, you will be the last producer left standing. Still doing it the old way because it's just better.
I got the textile quack button here, and it's. What am I going to do without it?
Going to ever be able to click that quack
button? You can't hand off the responsibility to quack timing. There's nothing.
That's how the world ends. It's the last human doing the last job, which is the person with a button on the quack timing.
Now, hopefully this next upcoming week will not be as horrid for me as this current one was, and I will have some additional, technological advancements to the video feed that we're doing here, so it'll be able to identify which one of us is speaking, Alex, and maybe put some indicators on the video feed so it's not just one static image. Try to carry a little movement, a little lifelike abilities in there, some movement. Make it nice and fancy.
I have no idea what is being built here. this empire of software. I am an awe-gator of your relentless, advancement towards the fully automated podcast that this will eventually become.
Yes, well, it is still fun to do, even on a time crunch, even when it's takes an entire Saturday or something to procure, because the rest of the week was hell. But it's still enjoy getting some of the news through the week here, and I think hopefully we'll have a nice show next week, and I will be in better spirits. Anything else, Alex, before we sign off for the day?
No, I think, other than the usual, Iran war is about to restart, whatever,
Well, look, the Strait of Hormuz, the Iran war, all of it is a quantum mechanical state of multiple states at the same time, right? So it's all a superposition, and that's where we like it, because that's science, and that's good. Science is good. We like science around here.
Yes.
Quantum mechanical superpositions are, by definition, super.
There's Let's see if they're still super by next week.
All right, sir. Take care. Everyone else have an exceptionally dumb week, but in a good way.
See you next week, everybody.